town issues. Discuss information regarding town issues from staff members and/or consultants. Like regular meetings of council, citizens are encouraged to attend and observe work sessions. However, they do not include public hearings, but do allow for public comment at the end of the work session unless otherwise called on by council. And you are allowed 3 minutes to speak on a subject that is on the agenda. Council does not take action vote on items during a work session other than to place on the council's next regular council meeting for consideration and an official vote. Council work sessions are streamed live on the town's YouTube channel, and minutes are taken and posted on the town's webpage following approval of council. At this time, I would like to introduce my fellow council members. To the left is Mayor Pro Tem Ron Williams.
Good evening.
To his left is Councilmember Todd Lyle.
Good evening.
To his left is Councilmember Jenny Michaels.
Good evening.
To my right is Councilmember Todd Carnes.
Good evening.
To his right is Councilmember Gavin Smith.
Good evening.
And to his right is Councilmember Will Allen.
Good evening.
And now I would like to ask Councilmember Lyle to lead us in the pledge.
Certainly.
And at this time, I would like to ask Councilmember Carnes to lead us in our prayer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's pray. Father, we do pause in front of you tonight, and we are a grateful people. We're a blessed people. We live in a prosperous place, live in a place of great safety and great financial freedom and religious freedom. All these good things come from you. We don't take them for granted. We want to pause and say thank you and pray that they would multiply not only across our state and our nation, but across this world. Your word says where a wicked man rules, the people moan. But when a righteous man rules, the people prosper. And so we want to be righteous leaders and we want to watch our people prosper. So we ask you to do this for us out of your grace and your goodness in Jesus' name. Amen.
Now I'll call the meeting to order. Council met in executive session prior to this meeting where we discussed the following items. Personnel, 1 routine personnel items, 30-4-70A2. Contractual update on a utility condemnation case, 30-470A2. Legal advice regarding a prospective development and advice regarding agenda items, 30-4-70A2. No vote was taken. Do I hear a motion to ratify this report?
So moved.
Councilmember Lyle made the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Councilmember Allen seconds it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. I can't see. And it is unanimous. Are there any deletions of items on tonight's agendas? Hearing none, our first presentation tonight is from Randy Cooper with Brittingham Group regarding the 2023 audit. Thank you for being here, Randy.
Thank y'all for allowing me to be here tonight to present the results of the June 30th, 2023 audit for the town. I want to go through an ACFR overview, an overview of the financial statements, other reports of independent auditors, internal control, and then I'll do a brief summary at the end to answer any questions. On the ACFR overview, prior year ACFRs have received GFOA's Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. The town has received this award for 25 consecutive years. ACFR is presented in 3 sections: the introductory, the financial, and statistical section. This year's ACFR is also applying for the award. Overview of the financial section. Financial section of the ACFR is comprised of a report of independent auditors, management's discussion and analysis, the basic financial statements, and the notes to the financial statements. The town did receive an unmodified or clean opinion, which is the highest level of reporting assurance an organization can receive. It's also an unlimited scope opinion, meaning that we had full and complete access to the books and records of the town. The town ended with total net position of $171 million, The 2022 net position was $153 million. The town's net position increased by $17,762,000 over June 30, 2022. This increase was mainly due to an increase in water and sewer revenue, unrestricted investment earnings, hospitality taxes, business licenses, and additional contributions of infrastructure by developers. General revenues totaled $18,319,000, which include your property taxes, your business licenses, hospitality taxes, unrestricted state aid, and investment earnings. On your other report of independent auditors, the town did receive unmodified opinions on the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters. The town also received an unmodified opinion on the independent auditor's report on compliance for each major program and on internal control over compliance as required by uniform guidance. Internal control, we do test internal control as part of our audit. I'm happy to report there were no findings noted that are required to be reported involving internal control. In summary, the town did receive unmodified audit opinions in all areas. The financial position of the town is strong with net position of $171 million. It did have an increase in net position of $17.8 million. And our sincere thanks to the entire staff of the town for their cooperation and assistance. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Just a quick question. I know that we've received awards through the Municipal Association? Is it through the Municipal Association?
Government Finance Officers.
Through the, Government Finance Officer Association for many years. But I was just curious, since we're having this conversation, do you guys do both auditing of governmental entities and private industries, or are you guys strictly focused on governmental entities with your audits?
Our firm, we have governmental and nonprofits, what we focus on mainly, but we also do have some for-profit businesses. We don't do any SEC audits, so any audits involving SEC companies, we don't do those.
Understood. And so this is primarily for the citizens of the town. Can you talk to us a little bit about the scope of this audit? My daughter happens to be, she's an auditor with Elliott Davis, and she does do the public company, not the public, the publicly traded companies. But can you give us some idea of the scope and the time frame that is required for you guys to do this annual audit that you do for the town, which is, like, the town's really a $60 million business. We've got about $60 million in revenues every year. So what does the scope of that look like, and how much time is involved for your firm in that scenario?
We're on site for usually in June for about a week and a half, and then we come back in in October, and for another week, and then we're working in the office after that, and then we finish up the financials usually in November, December timeframe, and then we're just waiting on Kathy to prepare the actual financials, then we go back through and make sure all the numbers agree. We do test internal controls, like I said, as part of our audit. That's usually done in the June timeframe, and then we come back and test all the balance sheet accounts, and then we do revenues and expenses as well when we come back in October to do that work.
And where's your firm based out of?
West Columbia.
Okay, all right. So you guys have local folks that come and spend a week on
That's right.
on
We're
site
on
a
site,
couple times
and then we
a year.
also working back in the office. Kathy uploads the information to our secure portal. We're working back there as well.
Okay,
It's probably a total of about 6 to 7 man weeks that we use to, between different staff members working on the audit.
okay. Thank you, sir.
I have a question. Almost 18 million, we were ahead. Do we know what was the highest contributing factor to that increase? The various areas of revenue?
What do you mean, the highest one? I don't know off the top of my head which the highest, but I do know it's contributed by the increase in water and sewer revenue, investment earnings, and hospitality taxes, capital grants, but I don't know the exact one which was the highest of all of those.
Are you able, I know that you couldn't disclose perhaps who they are, but I assume you do other audits for other municipalities. Does your group, I know like with private entities, oftentimes in audits, they conduct efficiency ratios. Is that done with municipalities? And if so, how do we measure up to other municipalities?
It's not something that we do normally. We can if it's,
Okay.
but we don't normally do that.
Okay, great, thank you.
So, Rachel, the Popular Annual Financial Report, did they put together this also, or where did this come?
Oh, gosh. Mayor, town staff put that together using the information gleaned from the ACFR.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
thank you, sir. I appreciate what you've given us thus far. As far as internal control measures, can you just briefly describe, maybe this is educating all of us, or some of us, what are those internal control measures, and give me an example of what that would identify and what you would do?
We test controls over your receipts, your disbursements, bank reconciliations, your payroll process, your court fine processing. We take a sample of transactions in all of those areas, and we're looking for approval of transactions by proper management. We're looking for proper support. We're looking to see that our police finds that the fine was paid or there was some resolution to the fine that was there. Payroll, we're looking to see, we're going back to the actual payroll files to look to see that you have support for what everyone's being paid. It was proper approved. The right amount was paid. As far as, like I said, disbursements, we're looking for approval, looking for supporting documentation, and making sure the information is there.
So as it relates to earlier, you mentioned doing some for-profit companies. Do you do any of these internal audit control measures in some of those for-profit companies?
Yeah, for every audit, we have to test internal controls as part of the audit itself, if they have controls to test.
Is there any difference in the internal control checks that you do for these for-profit companies versus what you did for the town of Lexington?
As far as what tests that we do?
The
or how
quantity, the frequency, the intensity,
It just depends on if there were problems in the past. We may increase our sample size or testing. But no, the procedures are similar. We go through and we document for each entity. All controls are different, so we go to each entity and document what their controls are, and then we test to make sure that you're doing them in accordance with those controls. And if there's items that we think needs to be improved, then we would suggest those areas for improvement.
have you made any suggestions for improvements for the town of Lexington, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Thank you.
Todd, I think myself, Councilmember Carnes and myself both were interested in ways that we could reduce the property tax on our citizens. And if you look at this on y'all's property tax millage rates, 2014, it was 35.14 for our residents. In 2017, we dropped it to 34.29, so there was a decrease there. And then in 2021, which is when the 2% was upped again, we dropped it to 26.06 millage rate for our citizens. So this is ways to look to lower the property tax for our citizens in different ways and give them a break on their property tax. So I just think that's good information. It's on page 9 if y'all want to look at it.
I agree, and Mayor, if you will, tomorrow we will be able to post our ACFR online as we do annually. And what you all have is the PAFR, the Popular Annual Financial Report. We'll be able to post that online as well as social. It's a little bit easier to read and digest, and it gives a little bit, no offense, sir, a little bit more interesting reading versus the ACFR financial report. So we'll be able to show that to all of our residents, and you all will be able to share it to others as well.
I just think that's awesome, and I hope we continue to be able to find ways to lower the property tax for the citizens in the town.
All right, Mayor. One thing that I find striking here, I don't know where Chief's at, but out of in this flyer that the tech council, the staff created for us, it says, where does your money go? Public safety is 48% of our budget. Parks and sanitation is 20% of our budget. So 68% of our taxpayer dollars, which is collected in business license fees, property taxes, and franchise fees in general, is spent for the good of our public.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and again, this is a public meeting, so we're recording this, and so some of this, we're just trying to share information so that the public understands, and you're there to correct us if we call a 7-ounce fish a 20-ounce fish. I think we're all not telling fishing stories here, but it's certainly worth noting that in 2014, I think Councilman Williams and I were both elected in that year. 2014, our millage rate was 35, and in 2023, it's 26. That's a 25% decrease. So it is important for the people of Lexington to understand that their property taxes from a town perspective, not overall, because every other entity went up in property taxes over that same time, but over the last 9-10 years, property taxes in the town of Lexington have fallen by 25%. And that millage has decreased because of some of the creative user fees we've been able to put in place and yet maintain revenues for public safety and things like that. So it's good information to have. And Rachel, if we would emphasize that when we put out our information to the citizens, because it's very confusing when you say property taxes went down 25%. I'm going, no. Mine actually went up about 20%, like everybody else's.
The towns went up.
But there's about 4 entities that contribute to those property taxes. We're obviously the smallest fish, but we've certainly done our part, and I'm not throwing any stones at other people. Everybody has different responsibilities, and those change, but we've done what we could as a town, and so if we could distinguish that for folks, I think that would be very helpful. And the information at the end of this, I would say attaboy to everybody who worked on this is outstanding. So maybe we can put this out in our communication about 39 miles of streets maintained and our median age and some of our employees and things of that. Information I didn't know, and it's helpful to our town. Thank you.
And when you mentioned that, you mentioned the property tax going down, and our public safety's response time is still way less than probably anybody in the county. So, this is great. I can't wait to see it go out there with some positive comments. Anything else? And the month, well, we'll talk about this next, okay? No more questions of Mr. Cooper? Thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate you. Business items. Our first item of business is from Assistant Town Administrator Stuart Ford. Discussion of financial transparency for record posting.
Madam Mayor, members of council, it's good to be with you tonight and share this information. You have a presentation in front of you, and it kind of dovetails on a lot that you've already hit on with your auditor. And I think it's important that we address a few things that have been discussed in recent months and allow you all to give us some feedback about what direction you would like to see us move. I'm going to give you a little bit of background, and then I'll cover what we do related to transparency today. We'll look at some peer group transparency protocols that they follow, and then a few basic recommendations from your staff about what we are doing and what we encourage the next step to be, and then we want to hear from you all further. As a bit of background, Randy's covered well what they do today in terms of auditing, but 100 years ago, auditing was very much in its infancy. Concepts that we take for granted today, like independence of your auditor, was something that was fairly new and not well defined. In fact, in the state of South Carolina, our General Assembly in 1912 passed a statute that says that towns are to keep an itemized account of all receipts and disbursements, and further to publish financial statements periodically. That was 1912. The Government Finance Officers Association was formed in 1906. I'm not sure how many were at the first meeting, but it's probably not a big group. It wasn't until 1933 that the State Office of State Auditor was formed in the state of South Carolina. And the current requirements for audits have their first appearance, it appears, in the state code in 1962. So just over 60 years has there been a requirement for the external audit. Now, in 1975, we're all familiar with Home Rule, where a lot of governmental functions were devolved from the state, that is the state delegation and the state general assembly, back to your local governments. And at that time, some of these provisions were altered and updated, and local governments were given significant authority through the elected representatives, you all, of the people, to decide how to best respond to the needs of their community. And financial reporting and financial transparency is certainly one of those areas. I mentioned the formation of the GFOA that was referenced earlier, where we get our awards from. It wasn't until 1934 that they first promulgated any standards for governmental accounting. 1934. They formed what was known as the National Committee on Municipal Accounting. And it wasn't until nearly 30 years later that the first, what we call Blue Book, was published by GFOA. And that was the first, actually at that time, 1968, it was an authoritative guide for how to do municipal accounting. And since that time, things have evolved further. The Blue Book is still published. It's a highly respected document that those in local government use. But it's no longer authoritative because accounting standards for governments are issued by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which was formed in 1984. So I give you that background to let you know that where we've come is a long way from where we were a little over 100 years ago. In fact, that statute referenced in 1912 is Section 52150, and I'll just read it. And I'll give you my take on that specific statute, and the lawyers can debate and discuss its applicability, specifically how it's applicable, but I'll give you my take on what this statute says. It says towns over 200 are required to publish financial statements. All towns in this state of more than 200 population shall, and I emphasize, keep an itemized account of all receipts and disbursements. Well, we certainly do that, and I hope even towns less than 200 do that. And then it says, and they shall publish statements of such accounts. Now, statements of accounts are different than the itemized ledger. They present a summary of what's in the itemized ledger. We have a general ledger that we keep, and we publish financial statements. We've provided you all financial statements on a monthly basis, and then we do the annual audits as required in the state, under the state law, and we provide financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles in the United States. And those statements are audited for the public's benefit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. And in addition to that, we have our audits done in accordance with governmental auditing standards, which require the auditors to look at our compliance with laws and regulations, compliance with contracts. It is a deeper dive. And so there is significant review of what we do through the audit process, and for us going about our daily business in implementing internal controls and being responsible for the public funds that we manage on behalf of the citizens of the town. So we produce our annual financial statements. We adopt a budget in accordance with state law, but we also go a step further than that. We do a budget that meets the requirements for the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, which gives you background and detail about all of the activities that we do, what are the factors that are driving what's happening financially for the town. That's an important document that we do as well. Beyond that, we make periodic disclosures in the financial markets. We have an obligation to those in the financial markets who have our debt to keep them abreast of any material changes. So not only do we do preliminary and official statements on our various debt issues, we also do periodic notifications and updates in the financial markets on an annual basis, and also of any material events that occur in the interim. And of course, the town of Lexington, like all governments in the state, is subject to the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. Now, with regard to where our information is located, on our web page, under Government, under the Government tab, there is a transparency page link. If you go to the transparency page link, you see what you have before you. I believe it's on page 9. The various items that are housed there under transparency. Anyway, anything from our minutes to our vision plan, code of ordinances, but there's also financial publications. And under financial publications, that is where we locate all of our annual budgets and the annual comprehensive financial report. We have those on our website going back respectively for the budget 2003 and for the ACFR, as it's now called, back to 2002, so that people can look and see all the things, all of the reports going back that far. Randy mentioned in his presentation, Mr. Cooper did, the awards that we've gotten, the 25 years for the excellence in financial reporting, and then the distinguished budget presentation for 14 years. You see those certificates for your most recently submitted financial statements and budget for 2002. Those require a great deal of effort on the part of the staff, but it represents a commitment, a long-standing commitment by this town, going back to 1998, to provide the highest quality financial reporting possible. And as was disclosed earlier, we are adding something that's been around for a while, the popular annual financial report. I think we used to receive from public companies reports in the mail when we owned stock. You may still receive those. I remember as a kid getting one from South Carolina Electric and Gas, because my dad was employed there and they owned some of that stock, and it was something like this.
Let me ask you a quick question. When we add that, will be out of this list that you gave us to compare the municipalities and the Lexington County, will be one of only 4 that puts that on.
Out of that list, that's correct.
Okay.
This is a step that we thought was important to present information that's easily accessible, information that is relevant to the majority of what we think the majority of our citizens would be looking for, particularly about the financial situation for the town. So that's something new that we wanted to emphasize tonight, and emphasize that it's not a replacement for the ACFR, it's a supplement. That's an important thing to note, and it's designed to have a broader audience. I did present to you some of the basis of some of our research. 22 entities, mostly cities. We also included Lexington County to see what various municipalities do with respect to all of these various requirements. Many have a transparency portal. In fact, it's half of them. About half provide some level of transactional detail. It comes in different formats, but about half. The ACFR and budget, everybody puts that online, which is great. As the mayor just mentioned, only about 4,
That will be with
18%.
us. That will be with us
With
included.
us included, as we've just added that out of the 22. So a small minority go to this step. Monthly or quarterly financial statements. Just a little over half do some form of that online. And then, thankfully, many local governments have taken the time and invested their resources in the ACFR. But, 82% of these go to that step, which is good. But only 7 out of the 22 take the initial or the extra initiative to do the budget. So,
And we're one of those.
and we're one of those. So, as you can see, there's varying ways that local governments attempt to be faithful to the requirements that we face. And we as a town take it seriously, and it's an important part of what we do every day. I'm proud to have been working in this area for most of my career, and I'm proud of the staff that we have, Kathy and Chad and everyone who works in finance. I respect Randy and his firm and thank them for all the work they do. But everybody can improve, and we seek to do that, as evidenced by this. And we want to tell you a couple of things we're doing and a couple of things that we would recommend as next steps by the town. As I mentioned about our requirement to be in compliance with FOIA, we can get software that will help us to manage that process so that it's more user-friendly, not only for our staff, but also for the public. And so we're moving forward with investigating software tools that can be used for FOIA. And it'll be built into our website, and so that people can access the information that's already been requested and see it. So there's not a lot of repeating multiple requests. People will potentially be able to go in and see what they want, somebody already has asked for example. We are standing up a Lexington transparency center is what we're seeking to do, is that's increasing what we do online, but more than that is a coordination across departments to continually evaluate what we do as an organization, to get feedback from the public about what they perceive as our strengths and weaknesses. That office, that center will be working to ensure compliance with FOIA and to make it as seamless internally as we can. Those are things that we are doing as a staff, we've put in motion. We would recommend to the town council that we take an additional step, and we'll ask for further direction from you as well, but we believe we can easily add our monthly financial statements. That has a lot of analysis, looking at budget to actual numbers and really giving insight into where we are in the budget. We want to add that to our transparency page. There are further steps that could be taken in more detail. That is a policy decision that you all need to give direction on. And so we as a staff stand ready to provide the information you need and then to carry out the direction that you give. So thank you all, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Stuart. Appreciate you doing this. I'm really excited about the Transparency Center because it will make it easier to navigate and find things on there, and also about y'all bringing something back on the FOIA software to enhance the process, because I know that, Brad, how many? You have quite a few FOIAs all the time, I'm sure. How many, not counting recently, over the years, back, how many FOIAs have you had on financial type stuff?
Actually, very few. The last large one was in 2016.
So very few. I like,
So, Stuart, I love this chart that you sent us.
Yes, sir.
And it wasn't part of the packet. But this is phenomenal because it kind of gives us a breakdown of what not every city in the state obviously is doing. Now, the only three that we're not doing is the PAFR, which you're saying we're going to start doing that. And you're recommending us doing the monthly quarterly, which would flip that no to a yes. If I understand it correctly. So the only other no would be detailed transactional data, which is what I submitted to Mayor Livingston to show our itemized expenditures on the website. And so I'm just looking at this chart, and it's phenomenal that we are doing so much already. If we publish itemized expenditures, we are up there with Rock Hill and Greenville, as far as I can see, as the only municipalities that have a yes in every column. That would be phenomenal. That would be 100% what I would propose to this body. Let's get a yes in every single column. And if Rock Hill and Greenville with 75 and 72,000 are doing it, we can definitely do it with 25,000. That'd be beautiful.
go ahead, sorry, Councilman.
Stuart, could you talk about what maybe would occur if we were to do a detailed transaction data publish? What kind of restraints or what kind of requirements would that place on the staff?
And is that the check register?
It takes a number of forms, but a check register certainly would serve that purpose. So the report would be system generated. The demands on the staff would come if there were any follow-up inquiries that would go through the FOI process.
Let me ask you that. If somebody wants to uncover any particular data to a finite certain transaction, are they able to submit a FOIA request and obtain that information?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have we ever denied anyone that when they request it?
No, sir.
Okay. And so,
Not to my knowledge.
have you weighed out the utility or the analysis of the workload upon our staff to lay every single detailed transaction one by one out versus the amount of times that we would have to just simply respond to a FOIA request? Have you weighed out the time demands on our staff between those two different options?
Well, it would certainly be better to respond to individual requests, I think, than to attempt to put out all of the underlying documentation. That would require a substantial investment in technology. First of all, a substantial investment. And then it would, because we've not done that before, it's kind of, you wouldn't know exactly how much time it's going to take and what redaction might have to occur to protect certain sensitive information. But in general, the full record of all documents related to a transaction would be a substantial investment on the part of the town to put it out for everything. So responding to individual requests about individual items would be less of investment, but that doesn't change the fact that it will be time and investment on the part of the town staff, and it would be, depending on the nature of it, potentially a costly proposition for the citizen.
What shows estimate on what that would cost to be able to do all that? It was a phenomenal number, way up there. $1 million, didn't you say?
A comprehensive financial system that could do something like that would easily be $1 million.
So, Will, were you talking about the check registers, which would be easier to post? Or?
So I would like everything to be posted. And I think we all understand that we're stewards of the people's money. It's not our money, obviously. So I'm always going to be in full favor of every cent that the town spends, the people should have access to it. They can do a FOIA request, but we know that they have to spend money on a FOIA request depending on how much effort that takes. And my question for y'all is, if we were to post all these things online on the front end, would that not save staff time on the back end when there are FOIA requests, when people can pull it up already?
But I don't think he's hearing you that it cost $1 million investment to be able to do all of that in the system we have.
Madam Mayor, let me also clarify maybe the question. If we were to do what Councilmember Allen's asking, do you anticipate that that would cost money by way of any type of manpower or any kind of resources as compared to if we did well, let me back up. Are we already taking a pretty heavy step to do this monthly PAFR? Is that a significant increase?
That should not be.
Okay.
We produced that. It was just a matter of putting that information online so it's accessible to the public, readily accessible to the public.
Is it an increase in information, though?
Correct.
All right, so as far as the taxpayer money and spending the taxpayer money, I understand it cost about $1 million to buy into something that would do line item by line item.
Line item by line item with full supporting documentation attached.
Right, and then parsing out the stuff that is statutorily protected or
Right.
confidential. How about have you looked at any of these other municipalities or groups who do publish the actual line by line item, and do they incur any expenses as it relates to manpower responding to these kinds of things?
I don't know the extent to which anyone has to respond to FOIA requests based upon the line item transaction detail listing. What we see in general online is very much system-generated reports, and they're not the kind where you can drill down and get further information beyond just the basic information about a transaction, because most people look at it as has been suggested, that is a substantial investment.
So it's kind of like a check register is what most of them do.
Generally, it's something to that effect. Some a little more detailed, some a little less. It's varying practice.
And the check registry would just be, currently, we could use our current system to do that, or would that need an updated accounting system as well?
Those are system-generated reports now.
Okay, so that wouldn't cost necessarily anymore,
Right.
unless there were calls coming into the staff to track down details.
It would
Okay.
probably cause some more FOIA requests,
Gotcha.
possibly,
Potentially.
because
It's not been something out there that we've done before. We don't know the magnitude at this stage of the game.
Right.
And are
So
we
you-
currently charging for every FOIA that's requested?
I'll let Brad address that because he is our coordinator for FOIA requests, and he can kind of walk you through that process if you'd like.
We have been generally, Ms. Michaels,
Can we use the mic? Make sure we get you.
we have been generally, we've had a policy of if it's like 30 minutes or less that we didn't ask for any charge. And we have sent out plenty of those that were 30 minutes or less.
What's the rate if it's over 30 minutes?
It's based upon state law. It says the lowest paid hourly rate of the employee capable of doing the work, the lowest paid employee that can do the work.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Ford, thanks for doing this analysis of the municipalities. My question for you is, when you analyze the municipalities or the county, did you find any municipalities or the county releasing such detail that Councilmember Allen is suggesting, such as the itemized expenditures with the supporting documentation? Or did I understand you correctly that most municipalities or counties are releasing a little bit higher detail, such as the check register?
I have not seen anyone who's got the full details. I haven't done an exhaustive search, but I'm not aware of any. Mr. Smith.
So it would be fair to say that producing the lack of better terms, the line item with the expenditure with the receipt, that would be relatively difficult for the staff to do from not from our side, but presenting that to the public. That's the software that would realistically cost us around $1 million, correct?
Right,
Yes, I mean, because we have all that on the back end.
right.
But it would be relatively easy for us as the town to produce the reports at a little bit higher of a level, such as the check register, to basically produce that report and publish that, and the public would still get essentially the same information, although, let's use, for example, maybe our utilities department needs to go to, I don't know, the gas station to buy Gatorade for our employees working some issue in the town, they need to buy Gatorade for them. And they do that a couple times. All those items would likely be grouped together rather than the individual expenditure, right?
Right, you wouldn't be able to look at that individual purchase and get any further detail beyond the fact that it was this vendor for this amount on this date. That's the basic information you would have. You wouldn't have the detail that makes it up. You wouldn't have information about any documentation about the process we went through to go through the purchasing process to get to that purchase. All of that is the supporting document that is maintained on file.
But it would be reasonable to say that if you looked through that report, if there was a transaction that, say, a citizen felt was a red flag, it would be reasonable to say that they could find red flags from that and then bring that to staff and create a FOIA request to get all of the supporting documentation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So did y'all have a chance to look at Columbia or Greenville or Rock Hill and just see what they were doing? As far as the upthrust for this is, you mentioned it might cost $1 million to have some software upgrade. The way I also look at it is, we're not getting any smaller. We're going to keep growing. So I would not be opposed for us potentially looking down the road, future-proofing ourselves, and seeing what we need as this municipality continues to grow in comparison to what, 75,000 or 140,000 municipalities dealing with. So can you tell me what Columbia's doing?
Check register.
Okay.
Same with Greenville.
So we would just be able to do that right off the bat
Yes. We
with
have.
no cost, essentially.
Our current system does generate that report, yes.
Awesome.
So just something that I'd like to point out. Thanks for sending this chart to us in advance, Stuart. When I analyzed this, if we were to start doing the check register, and we are doing, is it the PAFR? Yes, okay, want to make sure I said the acronym right. And then also the detailed transactional data. We would be answering yes in all of these columns. I just think it's important to note out that we would be one of only 3 municipalities, as he pointed out. The city of Rock Hill is one of those. They're 4 times the size of the town of Lexington. The city of Greenville is 3 times the size of the town of Lexington. So we would be a very small municipality producing the same type of report. So I think that'd be a significant step forward for the town. It gives access to financial information at a more detailed level, but it doesn't incur the expense of approximately $1 million for a financial system. Additionally, I'd also like to point out that those municipalities are not in this area. The closest municipality would be 70 miles away that's doing anything like this. So the town of Lexington would be leading us forward, and that includes Lexington County.
And I did want to clarify, I don't even know that we could find a system, one system, that would document everything and be able to relay it externally for easy citizen access. If we were, minimum, $1 million is what we would be looking at. And I do just want to point out, I know it's easy to skip over the budget award, but I think it's really important just to note, when we issue our budget, there's a narrative, there's goals, there's a story. Most of the cities that you see on here that don't have the budget award, it's because they just publish numbers, and it's incumbent upon you as the reader to try to figure out what their goals are, why they're spending their money in a certain way. So we tell this story on how we spend in a variety of different ways.
I really appreciate y'all's work on this. It's a lot of work. How long legally do y'all have to keep? Does the town have to keep receipts and that kind of thing?
So the state promulgates a records retention schedule. I haven't looked at that recently, but my vague recollection is accounts payable was something like 3 years.
That's what I was thinking you had said.
It was relatively short. However, you know, we do scan documentation in, and so we are able to maintain it for a longer period of time than that at
Gotcha.
this point.
Mayor. I haven't said a whole lot because I've been sick and don't have much of a voice left. You know, I appreciate all y'all have done, Stuart, and I know Kathy does an outstanding job with all the ladies and help that she gets in her department. And I have, when all this started, I started asking questions of citizens of what they were willing to pay for, and they made it real clear that they didn't want to spend their money to do this. They want their taxpayer dollars to be spent where we're currently spending them, on police department and parks and improvements, that if somebody wants records, that they can go through the proper process of a FOIA and get them and pay for them themselves. They didn't want to carry the burden of that cost. But if we can put the register online, that helps, should help anybody that's looking for any information to narrow down their search, which would make their FOIA request cost them a little bit less. Hopefully that should satisfy everyone.
I have a question too. So I know working in state government a long time ago, we have to bid most things out, correct? It's a certain price?
So right now, we have to do seal bids greater than 20,000.
Okay,
We are able to purchase items under state contract, which makes the purchasing process a lot more efficient because the state does the bidding on our behalf, basically. And then you have varying requirements for things that don't have to be.
and you still have
That is
to,
what we
even
did.
lower stuff, you still have to get 3 bids to have there and everything. So you follow all the rules as far as all that's concerned,
Correct.
as far as spending the money.
Mayor, what's if we have a water pipe break and it's July and the guys are going to be out there in the hole for 6 hours and 100 degrees, what's the process for them to purchase Gatorades or something for the guys? Do we have a budget? Do we have a line in the budget for the police department or the guys at the Parks Department to get the necessary refreshments to keep them going and keep them hydrated while they're working safely?
So the directors in the various areas could address it, but I know that we make provision by providing water and those types of things. But under some extraordinary situations, we may have to buy certain things in the field. Small dollar purchases, there's a different requirement for that. Less than $1,000, you try to get quotes, but relatively inexpensive items, there's not a requirement for written quotes, so that we can operate and respond to those immediate operational needs.
Well, just for instance, if the chief has a hostage situation and they're out there for 12, 24 hours and he buys pizza for his guys that are on standing, I don't think anybody in the town of Lexington is going to have a problem with that. I mean, I really don't think they're going to have a problem with the chief buying his guys some pizza to take care of them, because they take care of our guys already and they love the police department. But I don't really know. I feel like y'all doing the right thing.
Madam Mayor, if I may summarize, I think we've heard a couple of recommendations. That was to purchase some software that's going to make our FOIA more efficient. Is that right?
Yes.
We also are going to go to the monthly register publication,
Monthly financial report.
financial report.
And what's Parfer? Is that how you say it?
Poffer,
Offer.
Parfer? Pafer?
I think it's a phenomenal job, and I I think it sounds like you guys have weighed out the utility, the risk, the time, the investment. And so I'm in favor of those recommendations that staff's made. So I'm not sure if we want to belabor this that much further. I think they're doing an excellent job and making a large improvement at the same time.
So
Does
just
it
to be clear,
Does it need to have a motion to go on the agenda, or y'all just need kind of guidance?
Guidance probably would be sufficient, and we will begin that process. So if you give us clear direction about what specifically you want, staff will make it happen.
just to be clear, I heard Councilmember Lyle recommend the staff's recommendations, but I didn't hear the check register, and it sounds like we were all relatively in favor of that, and not trying to speak for anyone. I'm personally in favor of that, so I'd like to make that recommendation pending the rest of council approves.
Can I second the recommendation?
As long as that's not gonna, require any extra, citizen money or staff money, time.
Okay.
I think that would be,
Let me
Okay.
ask you a question, if you can do this. Let's back up just a minute. And nobody's trying to stop the check register, because I think it's probably the best idea of what to do. But could you check with the municipalities that put it out there and just ask them if it seems to be what they're, we've got some citizens sitting here that I know is interested in this. See if it's what their citizens are interested in, if it, do we need to have the FOIA stuff in place for them to apply for requests that make it easier for y'all before you start posting that? Is there, I'm not opposed to it either, but how many are there? Let's see. Lexington County does it. You could easily talk to them. West Columbia and Casey don't do it. None of them, nobody else in our county does it, right? Just Lexington County? Newberry does it.
12 out of 21 of the,
Yeah, Columbia, you could easily talk to them. They're bigger than we are, but could we find out if it causes more work for the staff, if it causes less, or, would you be okay with them doing a little research, or?
I think they've done a lot of research. 12 out of 21 of those entities that they looked at published detailed transactional data. That's 57%. So the town of Lexington
I
is
guess
in the
what I'm saying
minority.
is, how many more FOIA requests did they get from publishing that? Do we have the system in place before they started, or just start it and roll with it?
I don't want to speak for staff, but I would tend to believe, there may be a few, but I can't imagine that the overwhelming majority of the town is going to start submitting FOIA requests for every financial record. There may be a few entities that do, but overwhelmingly, I don't think people like my mom are going to go do that.
well, and again, FOIA ask are absolutely 100% okay. They just need to be paid for.
Right. And I think, you make a great point. I think we should note that I personally, and I think I speak for everyone here, welcome every FOIA. We have a responsibility to produce documents. They are the people's documents. So I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think the thing that we want to guard against is information outside of context breeds miscommunication. And so nobody's against putting information out there, but if it's not put out there in enough context, then it's open for all types of interpretation, and you leave the blanks there. And if you leave blanks there, people fill them in, and they fill them in outside of context. And so I think it sounds like we're all in agreement. Maybe there's some questions about the register. I would like to see a sample of what that would look like if we were going to put it out. Because I don't mind putting out the information, but I don't want to put out the information in a context that's going to breed all type of misinformation, distrust, things like that. It's like we have paid CPAs and people that spend weeks in our office who are trained professionals who are there to look through all of our books and make everything's up on the up and up, make sure everything is on the up and up, and we want to trust in them. And we want to present enough information to folks so that they can understand what's going on. And and follow behind that, but I would just like to see what the format would look like of that information as it goes out, so that I've been sitting here 10 years. I want to see if I can look at it and fully understand how those funds were appropriated before we send it to the other 25,000 people and ask them to try and understand where those funds were appropriated when we just put out the register information, because we're saying we can't supply all the sporting information, right? And, it's cost $1 million to put out sporting information. So how much supporting information is there when that goes out that way? Is it going to be enough to be meaningful, or is it going to be just enough to cause a bunch of confusion? And I won't really know that until I see it on the paper.
How about we do this, Councilmember Carnes, and everybody, if you're okay, we'll be putting this, why don't we put this on the agenda for March? The council meeting in March to vote on, and let y'all bring a full presentation that can be up before us, and let us see the check register and what it would look like, and maybe in that time y'all can also talk to some of the municipalities that put them up, just to see if it increased their FOIA amounts. But just put it up there for us and let us vote on it in March. Is that okay? That's what y'all voted on, is putting it up. to be
I'm fine.
voted on
Yeah,
in
I'm fine
March.
putting it up for a vote in March.
So you'll be bringing in March, I guess what we're voting, or we're telling y'all to do is bring this presentation back with some samples of the check register up so we can see it and what it would look like. So we can, along with the Transparency Center, isn't that what we're calling it? Transparency Center. And, Mike can even have some of this uploaded on that by then, and the Transparency Center up so we can see it online too and see what it looks like. Because you're gonna, y'all have any problem with her going ahead and putting that up?
No, absolutely.
And
No, I think it's great.
let's just see what it looks like, and is that okay with you, Will? And us vote on it,
Yeah,
the
that's
March
great.
council meeting?
One other thing I would like to add is how hard would it be and how realistic would it be to go backwards and post if we're not doing the backup documents? So we're still not spending $1 million on the software, going back a few years and showing those expenditures as well. Because when I originally sent it to Mayor Livingston, I wanted to go back to 2015, and that was just because that was when the hospitality tax was started, and that was really when a lot of people started asking questions in the town, where is this money going to, and that sort of thing. And I think it's in our best interest to show the people where every cent that we're spending goes.
Madam
So I
Mayor.
would love to be able to
Yes.
go backwards to 2015 and post all that as well.
Yes.
I would be in favor of going backwards on the H tax if that's the source of the question, but for us just to carte blanche, go backwards and vomit everything up, why stop at 2015? Why don't we go to 1998?
Let's do it.
Because it's a ridiculous use of time. It's a gross misuse of government funds to make people go put on things that are not relevant. So
Yeah.
Well,
If-
that's
if
that's
you're
my
gonna keep
question
on-
is how much of a staff input, how hard would it be to go back?
if it's
is my
not hard,
question.
I'd be in favor of it. But my understanding is you're asking people to go dig out of boxes and upload. The H tax seems to be the issue with your concern, and so I'd be in favor of going back and showing exactly where every dollar for the H tax
But we
went.
have that online, don't we? Didn't we put that online?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if I may, I actually have some information on that I requested from staff. A recent analysis, I don't want to say that this is today's analysis, but it's $24.2 million has been collected in H-tax funds. Approximately $12 million has been allocated to streets and infrastructure improvements. $4 million was allocated to the property tax reduction, that's the millage reduction, and also some emergency response related to the COVID pandemic. And then we have $3 million that's reserved for the, I'm sorry, I think I mixed my number up. $12 million was the property tax reduction and emergency response. $4 million is allocated for the North Lake, the next phase of that. And then we also have $3 million reserved for some improvements near Sunset Boulevard and Corley Mill. So
That don't sound right. That don't sound right.
that is a recent analysis given to me by staff.
So the $12 million, $4 million is about what the property tax relief has been to date. Then we have $3 million reserved for the North Lake improvements, the next phase. And I believe it's, as of that analysis, it was like 5.2 was Corley Mill.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And so since that analysis, anything that's been collected basically is gone towards those specific projects that are already being, where we're setting aside money for Corley Mill, and the property tax relief for this year, that kind of thing.
This is why I don't do numbers.
Madam Mayor, I just, like, that's, we need some clarity on that. What we need is a profit and loss on an income statement on hospitality tax only, because what I didn't hear in there, I didn't hear the 2 million that we spent on the one-way pair downtown. I didn't hear North Lake Phase 1. I mean, it sounds like those are monies that are in reserve, but I didn't hear the monies that were spent already.
Well, that was the 12 million for streets and infrastructure.
Less
Kind
the
of-
4 million?
That was kind of broad,
Okay.
catch-all for all of those projects.
Yeah, it'd just be a lot clearer if we could do a clean income statement on that, for all to see. And I agree, like, if we want to, I mean, that should be published anyway, so we should provide that information. But just picking some number out and saying that we're gonna do, another financial audit of the last 8 years or 10 years or 30 years, when I have no idea how much we pay these guys every year to do a financial audit of us, but I would not be in favor of picking a number and going backwards. I would be in favor of a full profit and loss on our hospitality tax money, because we do want people to understand that the hospitality tax has been used to significantly reduce their property taxes by 25%, and it has been used to do 90% of all the road work you've seen in the town of Lexington since 2014, because we really hadn't had any help from anybody else. Everything that's been done downtown, North Lake, Corley Mill, around Chick-fil-A, and all those areas, every turn lane, we paid for all those. Actually, we as in the citizens of the town through hospitality tax. So that's good information that we certainly want to get out. And I would be in favor of publishing that back to 2015. And I think that information is readily available.
Isn't some of that on the website, though?
It's in the annual comprehensive plan, right?
No, I
So
mean,
we have some information around dollars for completed projects currently on the website. In the financial reports, there's a yearly profit and loss on the hospitality tax. But what I hear a request for is more detail and showing specifically the projects and that type of thing, all in one location. That's not a terribly burdensome process. It's just a matter of putting it together in a format that's useful and meaningful to people.
Yeah, more
And-
simplistic,
Right.
would be. yeah.
But we can do those things for sure.
okay.
And I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I mean, just one man's suggestion. I think that should be very simplistic. I think that could be a pie chart.
Well, I think Randy and Lauren have worked on a lot of that stuff, because they've worked on it recently for some speeches I've had to give. So I know that they've broken it down, and there's detailed information that they've given me, so I know they have it.
It's at a higher level.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a chart.
Okay.
essentially, But yeah, absolutely, we can share that.
And I have talked with some of the staff about what that cost would be to go back in time, 2015, even farther back, and it's not cost effective, and it would end up costing the citizens, taxpayers, all of us.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
So
If we're going
that-
to table this for March, that gives them a chance to take a look and say, hey, if we're not going to go with that software, maybe it's not that much of a cost for us to go back to 2015.
I
That's
think
just
it
what I
is.
would like to get from y'all.
I think it is, but
estimate
the
of that.
hospitality tax, I'm with them on the fact of doing that.
I think we've given staff a lot of direction, Madam Mayor. I'd recommend we move on.
Move forward with what we recommended for y'all to bring forward to the council meeting.
Madam Mayor, can I say one thing?
Yes.
This chart was very helpful, and it represents a lot of work. And I want Kathy and Chad to be acknowledged. Chad did a lot of work on this, and I want that to be clear, and I appreciate that effort.
We do appreciate you and all of your staff, Kathy. We appreciate all the ladies and Chad that works in there with you and all that they do. We do appreciate that. And we're going to get this right and figure out how it looks and what we need to do. It's just hashing through it since it's a first-time thing. I mean, I think everybody should respect that we've got to ask questions ourselves and how we want it to look and what we want it to look like and that type of thing, moving forward.
Madam Mayor, can I piggyback off of that for 1 second? As I was researching this, I want to put some of these things on the record, and especially since people are watching, just to highlight some of the good work that Kathy and her team have done. If you'll give me 45 seconds. Nearly every member of our finance team plays a role in preparing the budget or other reports such as the ACFR or the PACFR.
You're going to get it
But
right.
since 1998, the town's budget has won the Government Finance Officers Association's Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting. That's 25 years. We've gotten that for 25 years. For the last 14 years, we've won the same organization's Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. And dating back as far as anyone here at the town would be aware of, has always received clean opinions on our audits or otherwise unmodified opinions from the independent auditors, such as who we heard from tonight. I won't go over how the audit is done since he did that. But the other great things that our accounting or finance team does is our Moody's rating is a AA2. I hope I said that correct. Which is very strong rating, one of the highest ratings you can have as a municipality. So you heard a lot of thank yous tonight, but I personally wanted to tell you thank you for your staff. If you haven't heard that in a while, thank you. Y'all do a great job and we appreciate you.
And I truly think that if we were not doing something right, we would not be getting all the awards we get and that
Yes.
type of stuff too. So we're trying. It's just figuring out how to put it out there and how to make it look. So
Yes.
we'll get it right.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our next one, which is resolution authorizing Saxagatha Lexington Public Facilities Corporation bond anticipation notes, Corley Mill TIF Assistant Town Administrator Stuart Ford.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the refunding rollover of our Corley Mill TIF ban is due on March 15th, 2024. This will require a resolution of town council. We've done this every year for the past few years. You have an attached resolution, that's the draft of that's been prepared by our bond counsel. That will be finalized by bond counsel for your adoption in March. This authorization is necessary due to the project delay from extensive engineering and planning associated with the Corley Mill Sunset Split Improvement Project, which resulted in the rollover period extending beyond the time provided in the original ordinance. I wanted to mention, because we have new members of council and so that you know what's coming, the Saxagatha Lexington Public Facilities Corporation, which is a corporation, a nonprofit corporation that's, the governing board is the sitting elected town council of the town of Lexington. The annual meeting, we generally have it at the same time each year, and it'll occur at our March meeting, and it's at that meeting where the corporation resolutions will be adopted, and then at the council meeting, the town resolutions will be adopted. So I'm asking you to place on your March 4th council agenda an item to adopt a resolution authorizing Saxagatha Lexington Public Facilities Corporation bond anticipation notes for the Corley Mill TIF.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams makes the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Councilmember Lyle seconds it. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. And it is unanimous. Our next item of business is from economic developer Jack Stewart, downtown rideshare locations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Hopefully I can be a little bit more entertaining with this one. So, as nightlife continues to grow in downtown Lexington, there's a rising demand for rideshare that we have here within the town. To address this need, the Traffic Committee unanimously, can't say that word, already tried 3 times today, recommended the establishment of 2 rideshare locations in prominent areas in our downtown. So you have a attached map here that kind of lays out where they might be. So the first of which is the old valet spot in front of Barrio or Aladias, and the second being the unmarked spot there in front of the old courthouse on Main Street. The idea for this is that they would be designed and designated to start with the starting time of 5 p.m. daily. There was also a recommendation by the committee to monitor the usage of these designated spots over time to see if we may need additional spots in the future as well. So, action request for this is just to simply discuss. So, here for questions.
Do we need to put this in form of a motion to
That's what I was
vote on it, or do it? Okay.
No. I would like to say that Chief Mothers Against Drunk Driving thinks this is wonderful because this is something we could advertise to where they could find their Uber instead of trying to act crazy and figure out where their Uber is located. So they are very much for this and think it's a great idea. And so do other people that I've talked with, thinks it's just great that we'll have designated areas. And I wanted to tell you too, I appreciate when we have events downtown, Chief, that you put out all the parking spots that are downtown and you show how many there are.
There.
Yes.
Jack, what about signage for these parking spots so folks would know that that's where they need to go? Did they talk about signage or?
That's the idea for this. We have not really gotten any further than the idea of this right now, but the idea would be signage that would let people know these spots are after 5 p.m. used for a rideshare loading zone.
I mean, it comes from the traffic committee, and I think it's a great idea, so I think we ought to do it, but I would like to make sure the signage is appropriate to the rest of the signs we've got downtown right now.
Right, yeah, I believe they would match branding of what we have right now.
Seems like it would be a safety thing too, considering what happened to that woman in Columbia, at 5 Points. So it would be a specific place that people would be looking.
And I know that eventually we're going to be looking at some different handicap locations down there too and where to adjust some. We're working with staff on that right now too, so.
Jack, were there any other spots other than these two that were identified? You don't have to tell me which ones, but were there other locations that would be possible?
There were. We started with 4, and I believe, we started with 3. The courthouse one was actually a new one that the traffic committee had come up with during the meeting. So there are 2 additional outside of these other 2 that we've kind of identified as a potential location there.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, ma'am. Was this just generated out of traffic committee?
No,
What was the catalyst?
I was the one that thought that we needed to look at it.
Madam Mayor was the catalyst.
Several
Madam Mayor was the
people had
catalyst.
brought it to me and
Yes, ma'am.
said we needed a designated location when we're having big events down there because it's hard to find where your Uber is or whatever.
I just wanted to give an attaboy. I guess I give it attagirl to Madam Mayor. I think it's a phenomenal idea. Thanks to our traffic committee. We certainly need it. We have tons of events down there that serve alcohol, and we all want people to get home safely. I think it's phenomenal. We should
Thank you
implement.
for doing that, Jack, and thinking it and running with it. We appreciate you.
Good job, Madam Mayor.
And our next, for information only, is Lexington Police Department and Old Guard Firing Cannon Police Chief Terrence Green. This looks cool. I want to go watch it.
I do too.
Mayor and Town Council, the Old Guard, which is a group of former pilots who flew with South Carolina Air National Guard, have an annual meeting every year in the Swamp Fox Den, which is located in the flight deck of Old Chapin Road. As part of the meeting, they retired in the George Cross Cemetery to honor those of our members who have died since our meeting the year before. We have 3 flags. They have 3 flags to retire on April the 20th, 24. Along with retiring the flags, they fire a cannon and toast our fallen with Jeremiah weed, which is their tradition. Put this get this for you for information. Also, we put media alerts out, social media to the press, and we also have an officer there just in case there's a question about when they hear that boom.
Okay.
Which is,
Thank you for all you do.
thank you.
We appreciate it. And this next one, we should all be very excited about from our economic developer, Jack Stewart, our communication survey initial results, and there is a whole team that worked on this, and we should be very excited about this.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. The Public Relations Committee has conducted a community survey. I'm sure most of you saw it. I know most of you shared it on Facebook as well. that was over the past couple weeks here that took place. It was actually, exact dates are January 30th through February 11th, so it ended last night. The joke earlier was that it was right as Taylor Swift had a kiss on the 50-yard line that the survey ended. So we have that, but I will give some initial results here. We have, as a team, not really been able to fully analyze these yet. We certainly hope to have a comprehensive report to you that comes out of this at our next meeting, but this is kind of where we're at today. So right off the bat, I want to give survey details. We already spoke about the date here, but distribution was on Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as email through Constant Contact. And we've got some stats here of our Facebook posts. The first post was on January 30th. We also had an email blast that went out at that time, as well as a follow-up post on January 9th. That was the Friday before the end of the survey there. So,
Jack, I think this is pretty neat. 58.8% opened their email on this.
yes, ma'am. And
That's
that is
awesome.
that is very high.
It is.
Yeah,
Very good open rate.
the 2024. I looked this up before we got in here.
PR marketing
2024.
person down here told me that was great.
Yeah, that's a very good open rate.
Yeah, the 2024 average open rate is about 30%, and the click-through rate there is 1%. So that's across the board. So
Oh, wow.
we definitely excelled in that. So.
You weren't doing any giveaways?
No giveaways. We just wanted to hear from folks. So, so I do want to start off. I know that we've heard some criticism of communication and stuff, so I was going to start off with that, and then we will get better from there. So these are a couple comments that we had on this survey. The town isn't communicating enough. Calm down, you're posting too much, so a little conflicting information there. And stop catering to the few complainers. On the good side that we had here, we've seen things like I receive all my information that I need from social media. Anything that I don't receive on social media, I find on the website. So it seems pretty effective there. The town is doing a great job replying to comments on Facebook, and communication is straightforward, direct, and effective. With that being said, conflicting information from all sides. We move on here to one of our best questions that I think really sums up the survey here. We have an overwhelming majority of people that are satisfied with the current communication of the town, meaning that we've been doing the right thing here for a while. So coming in here right in the middle, 3, 4, and 5, obviously making up the majority here on the scale of 1 to 5 here. Moving on, let's talk about who actually took this survey. That's just as important as what we find out in here. So we had 929 people respond. 665 of those were in-town residents, and 264 were out-of-town residents. So we had a good bit of debate back and forth whether or not we would open this up just to in-town residents or out-of-town. We made the decision that communication is usually done to anyone who comes in within the town limits. So we opened it to both there. For folks that were in town, we did ask what subdivision they were in, so we were able to know who we're talking with. And our number one coming in was Wood Creek, followed by Sterling Bridge, Mallard Lakes, Madison Park, and Ventnor Wood.
And in fairness, I did not lobby Wood Creek because I was in Mexico. So,
And I was sick.
Ron did.
Ron was sick. He couldn't talk, so I didn't mess with them. But they do.
I will say our biggest piece of pie here in this pie chart, the 16.3, that's actually folks that notified us that they do not live in a subdivision. So I didn't put that as a top ranking thing there just because I think there was some confusion that people in town, out of town, they didn't know where they lived. So we just left that where it is. Moving on here, what type of information would you like to receive from the town of Lexington? Our top one here is road closures and traffic updates. Folks want to hear about traffic. We're doing that today. We usually have pretty good engagement on that as well, so that wasn't a shocker to anybody who saw that. Next one here, we're looking at town projects, followed by community events, emergency alerts, and then some of our lower 3 here, we saw quality of life highlights, public meetings and government, as well as town history near the bottom. Asking about frequency. How often do people want to hear from the town of Lexington? This the question would include emails or social media posts or anything. How often do folks care to hear from us at all? Our biggest piece of the pie here is weekly, followed by as needed. So a majority of people are saying, hey, I'd like to hear from you once a week, but if not, just as we want to hear from you. So that was a little bit surprising to hear. But and then daily being our lowest selection there. What communication platforms are you currently using to receive information from the town? Our top should be of no surprise, social media. So that's Facebook and however people found this survey, most likely they picked that there. Next is email newsletters, so Town Topics, which is doing great. We have similar open rates all the time, once a month, as well as the town website that we have there as well. So
The printed material surprises me. It's more than I thought.
that does surprise me. We talked about that a little bit this morning. We were putting all these together, and we concluded that that might be folks that are using the, like the scavenger hunts and things like that around town, that they're getting pamphlets or
in the water
material
bills.
there. I'm sorry.
Or the
what was-
town topics in the water bills. that
Yeah,
they still
town
do that,
topics. Yeah, that would
which
be
my
considered.
husband.
Yeah, in-town folks are also getting printed town topics. So. Moving on here, follow-up question to what do you currently use? What would you prefer to use? So we've got a couple additions to this. Social media, email, Town Topics actually coming in first, which was great to hear from everyone. So once again, pat on the back to the folks that do that. As well as social media coming in next, town website, and then our newest addition here is one of the front runners, a town app. So folks would like to hear from that. We also had a lot of written comments of potential need for a town app, as well as text messaging right there after that. So we keep moving our way down. They get smaller and smaller. We've got podcasts there at the bottom of that.
Jack,
Yes, sir.
so a town app, what difficulty would it be to establish a town app that could push out an alert from PD, for instance, for a major traffic accident so people could avoid that area?
I think they're going to be looking at some of that kind of stuff and bringing it back to us with the budget.
I
Is
didn't
that
know if
correct?
you had an idea of how, is
I
that
don't-
real complicated or is that something fairly?
I don't have an idea right now.
Okay.
We were kind of waiting for direction from this survey to figure out if it was worth our effort to research that.
Got it. Okay.
We do have some research in the pipeline though for that, so we kind of anticipated that as a good answer. So
Thank you.
to wrap this up, some instant action items. So just by looking at this morning, we've got 3 things that are easy fixes that we saw based on comments, additional comments, that kind of thing. So quick ones here. Education about Notify Me options. Notify Me is a part of our website that's from Civic Plus that we already have today. That's going to be email notifications as well as text messaging. So we found that it's grossly underutilized based on what the survey was saying. So we've got some education pieces and things we can push out on social media as well as via email that could have people sign up for this notification system. Number 2 here is repost event details the week of the event. So we're currently posting event details about stuff at the Ice House Amphitheater or snowball events or anything like that that we are doing months and months in advance. Months and months in advance. We're generally not reposting them the week of. We had a couple people that said, I honestly forget that they happen and they sneak up on me. So easy one there that we could repost those. And the last one here is adding hyperlinks to the town topics. As of right now, we've with a lot of complaints there about it that they weren't able to click on the picture how they wanted to. So this will be able to, we can link schedules at the Ice House or something and have people click on it and link to the Ice House website and see the schedule coming through their town topics. So, there you go.
Jack, I want to thank you and the team for working so hard and working so fast. This was one of the top things that came out of the council's priority as communication and finding out how we can do a better job. And I know that you have a team and all of y'all have been working hard to do what council's been asking and what we've been looking at. So I totally appreciate this and I appreciate what y'all have done. And I love seeing, even though some things get negative stuff, I do love seeing the stuff go out there, the facts and what's going on. And I just appreciate this group. So if you'd please, you and Lauren both, I don't know if anybody else in here is on the team, but Michael, I appreciate you, and Laura, both of y'all. So we do have 4 of them, but I appreciate y'all working together and getting this done. And Michael, I hear you're the whiz as far as the website's concerned and getting us up to speed and making it easier for people to use. And that's important because people like me are very challenged, and if it's not easy to use, so I appreciate that very much. Any other comments about this?
I would just say, I heard a great expression the other day. It says communication is kind, because the vast majority of arguments and disagreements come from miscommunication. And I used to say communication breeds cooperation, but I like communication is kind, because it stifles a bunch of angst in society. So thank you guys. You got great ideas. Thanks to the 1,000 people that actually took the survey and gave us some feedback. So we got real data to make good steps forward.
And hopefully we'll be doing more surveys going forward as things come out and as y'all come up with things too. So it's kind of exciting, all the changes that are happening, and we'll get there. It just takes a little time to figure out what it looks like. Appreciate you. And our final item of information will be from me, I guess, and Rachel. Basically, I asked y'all before we were all sworn in and everybody that was sitting up here, to give me your priorities going forward for this next year and what we needed to work on. And so we took all those, we combined them all down, and we gave them to Rachel, put them together, and it gives you the category, the task, kind of the priority, the department that will be working on it, the status, the notes on it, and kind of where we are. This went to Rachel and Stuart, I'm sure, and Brad all worked on this of seeing how long, because not all of this can be done immediately. So how long it would take and where we are with it. And if you look at it, some of it's already being completed, some of it's in movement to get it completed. What is the longest thing on here?
There are some items that are listed as 12 months, not necessarily because they're the lowest of priority, but it just may take a little bit longer, or it's to be implemented later in the year, for example.
And some of it, according to what happens, but it's, some of them's discussion things and trying to figure out if it's possible, if there's a way to do it and that type of thing, but.
This is a living document, so we'll make updates along the way. Some items may be completed sooner, some might be pushed out a little bit farther. And then just one thing I do just want to clarify, the top item that's listed there, something we've already begun, is broadcasting town council work sessions. We're doing that now. The board and commission meetings will all be broadcast. We don't intend to stream the committee meetings. They're advisory. They don't make decisions. But I just wanted to make that clear on the record, so we don't have anyone looking for them.
That does not mean, the planning commission will be streamed, the Board of Architectural Review, the Board of Appearance, is that the ones?
Zoning.
And zoning. And there was one, let's see. And where's the transparency? Is it further down? I mean, there's quite a few. That I think the communication's done, we're working on the transparency and how that's going to look and what y'all going to put together on that. Any questions? And we'll use this as a working document as we get some of these taken care of and they've moved off or we've done them, then we can go back and each throw out 2 more and then continue to add and continue to work on a list. Rachel's like, yeah, can we get through the first year first? But hey, I mean, she's just brand new. It's no big deal. Have you filled the bathroom on the second floor yet?
Hey, scratch that from the record. I do think it's probably noteworthy, since this is a public document, this is there's 30 items on here, and in this public document, there's nothing in here saying that, that there's a consensus of council on all of these things. A lot of these things are things that were put up by individual members who are there pursuing individually to get more information on, and then they'll come to council to see if there is a consensus. So this is not like a council agenda. This is a conglomeration of
Council's thoughts.
individuals' goals that will at some point come before council to see if they are the will of council.
This is council's thoughts and priorities in their minds, and some of them overlapped, so. But it's a good start, and it's a good working document. And with that being said, are there any comments from any of the council members? Any comments from staff?
Yes, Mayor. If I can, I'd like to invite Randy Edwards up. His department recently received an award, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity for him to share the award in the project.
You go, Randy.
It's all y'all. Yeah, so last Wednesday night, we were, on behalf of the American Council of Engineering Companies, the town of Lexington was awarded this nice plaque for taking small projects, excellent in engineering, with Michael Baker. And so we were there just to receive the reward for the work we did at North Lake Widening and Harmon Street Extension, for, I guess, you know, just the fact that it was, we competed with numerous other projects in the state of South Carolina in our budget range, you know, so we were in the $2 million to $5 million projects. And so it's just take this opportunity to just, you know, let y'all know that we've been recognized.
Nice.
I asked Randy to come and present, because I know otherwise he probably wouldn't have bragged.
Thank you, Randy.
But I do want to emphasize that it wasn't just transportation. There was assistance by the Parks Department, utilities as well. So anyway.
Thank you, we appreciate it. Any more comments from staff?
No, Mayor.
Any comments from the public regarding tonight's agenda? And if you do speak, remember it's 3 minutes.
Hey, everybody. Thank you very much. Great discussion. Truly. I did not know that we had that information available to us, Rachel. That was very insightful. You know, on the subject of peer groups, we've spent some time looking at peer groups, like Lexington District 1, and their granularity goes down to, I think I saw $3, maybe $1.46. So I've kind of spent some time looking at it. Talked to the CFO over there and how much time it takes and what the burden really is to pull that off. It looks like you already have that in hand, though. It looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward to upload the itemized expenses from what I heard tonight. In regards to further on peer groups, Stuart, your comment on looking at tools and technologies, I know for a shorthanded IT department in a municipality, that can be really tough. So what I'm curious about is where are the economies of scale and skill in looking at tools and technologies like speeding or simplifying, streamlining the FOIA request process. I mean, I think that by putting the itemized expenses, you're going to short circuit that down and reduce it anyway. But if you're going to go do that, maybe that's something of interest to the other municipalities or the county, because I think that's really interesting. I'd still like to peel back the onion on the $1 million, but there may be some economies to share and spread that cost that I think could be really useful and very attractive to a lot of you know, taxpayer concerns as far as that goes. But I prepared a little document, and the discussion actually followed this framework that I've put together, because I think that it's important that the public, a lot of the public does and some don't, understand that there's the budget process, there's the audit process, and then right in the centerpiece of all that is the expense visibility. Kind of like when you're in corporate America working for GE, you have to turn an expense report and line item out everything you did and who you took to dinner. So I think most people can relate to that. in the future going forward, I have a low, medium, high set of suggestions on scope and spend. So when you look at things like the Virginia Hilton Park that was originally came in the paper at about 7 million, then it crept up to 8.1, I realize things can happen, but I think having visibility on communicating that will assure that there's a shared understanding and that there is a shared level of maximum cooperation, because that's what we're after. That's what I'm after. That's what I want to see. That's why I ran for office this past fall. So I really want to thank you all. This is the best meeting that I've been to.
Thank you, Greg. And I was fixing to say, Greg, can you give us your...
I forgot my address and everything.
I was fixing to say, Greg, can you give us name and address?
349 South Church Street, right in town center. I don't live in a neighborhood. Y'all take care. Thanks.
Thanks.
John Allen, 105 Turnberry Lane. I agree. I really appreciate all the information y'all brought. That was actually really exciting because it's just like laying everything out. I didn't even know we were going to be talking. I don't ever talk to my brother Will, in case anyone's wondering. So I didn't even know the expense reports we were going to be talking about that. But I wanted to ask one question. One question I had was, who gets to spend money for the town? So like, who has the ability to spend money that goes directly to the town's account, or is it you spend money and then the town reimburses you? Because like with our restaurant, like I know who has a credit card to the restaurant. I know who's able to spend money.
No council has credit cards right now.
I'm not necessarily credit cards, but I'm saying is there like who spends money for the town on even like the Gatorade?
The department directors.
Okay, department directors, perfect. Another thing, point I wanted to make was, we were talking about FOIA requests, and the reason why I think it's imperative that we publish the expense reports, and obviously we don't need to do the specific line item like Gatorade, but you make an allowance for that within the budget or for the month, is because while we have FOIA requests is a process, and many citizens shouldn't have to take the time to go through that process when the council could easily publish it for them to, it's easy access. And a point you made was, Councilmember Carnes, was you were like, you made the point that you don't want to publish things without context. Well, I think we should publish it with context. If we have these line items that we know what the context of it is being spent on, then they can ask more educated questions. Because the problem with the FOIA request, while it's great, if I'm a citizen, FOIA requests, you have to be very specific about certain things. I might not know the questions to ask, but I might be thinking about what I want to know, but I don't know the question to ask. So that's why publishing it, I think, is imperative. Councilmember Ron, I know that you had talked about nobody wanted to spend $1 million to get the system. While I agree, I would prefer if we do it where we don't have to spend money. I think $1 million investment long-term so that we can have clear itemized expenditures so everybody's on the same page is money well spent, as opposed to not having that information and then we see money getting allocated in certain areas that maybe it shouldn't be. Something with, the Virginia Hilton project, is there a way when we're doing the expense reports through the cash, what was it called, a cash drawer, or what was the term y'all used?
The Transparency Center.
The Transparency Center. Is there a way we can publish the change orders? Like I know when we did our expansion for Mama Rabbits, my contractors were fantastic because anytime we had a change, the change order was so specifically clearly laid out about what was the expected price, what have we changed, what's the new price. So it wasn't up in the air. Is there a way to publish that moving forward with projects the town works on?
Subject to FOIA, right? Yeah, you just FOIA request.
That would be subject to FOIA, okay.
I want to clarify something for you too on the Virginia Hilton Park and Greg Brewer, is that was a 19-year project. It took 19 years to get there. There was hundreds, if not thousands, of people surveyed about that park. The number one thing that people wanted protected was all those trees in there. And you can't take big equipment in there and run all over those roads if you want them to live. So it's a lot bigger project than just what you would have been if you'd clear-cutted it and done it. And I can tell you this, that I'm getting messages every day of people chomping at the bits to get back in that park and are so excited about it.
Yeah.
And
I
it will
wasn't taking away
greatly be
anything from
used for the
Virginia
next 20
Hilton.
years by the children and the grandchildren of people in this community.
Yes. I wasn't saying anything about Virginia Hilton in that sense. I'm just saying with
And no,
projects.
my husband did not have a thing to do with it.
Okay, I don't understand. I didn't mention your husband. I was not talking about
I
anything.
wasn't talking to you, I'm sorry.
Okay. But one of the points, I think, as a council, especially because we have new elected since November, something I'm excited for y'all to be able to do is to be the change, because I've talked with everybody individually, and we have all had frustrations where there's things that people didn't know what was going on, y'all weren't aware of from prior administrations. Us always being proactive to be on the same page, that 100% transparency with everything, even if it is extra work, getting all of it out there, is telling the citizen, they really care about this information being put out. There's nothing hiding. Sometimes when it's like, I like the idea of going back to 2015 with the hospitality tax, but going back is we're showing everything that's been going on. When we see pushback against it, it kind of starts breeding like distrust, like, wait a second, is there something that we're not supposed to see? Is there something that's being hiding? And I'm not saying that there is.
I think we said we want to go back.
Yeah.
For the hospitality tax.
That's why I think it's a
That's what
great
we said,
idea.
Todd, is for the
That's what he
hospitality.
said.
Yeah.
Not for everything.
Also, and the last thing was the doing the app. I think that could be so beneficial, and I know a ton of people who I interact with that would love that idea of being updated, easy access to know what's going on. So thank y'all so much for everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Agreements, huh?
Hey, Debbie Heim, 200 Shady Creek Road in Lexington. I'm outside of the town limits, but 2 stoplights from this location. When you talk about state law, especially Title V that governs municipalities, and it, like Stuart had mentioned, 52150, okay, one that I've had multiple discussions with people on this council and staff, all going back to last year. Okay, receipts is money coming in, money received. Disbursements is money going out. Okay, that law was first published in 1912. One thing that staff failed to mention is that it was last updated in 1962, which conveniently is when the audit requirement law, okay, was last updated, was 1962. Okay, so the same year, 1962, we still have publishing itemized expenses and we still have audits. And I just think, as was mentioned earlier, it's good to have things in context, the full picture. Okay, nobody has anything to hide here, right? Okay, I do also want to say too, this was a fabulous work session and I very much applaud staff, especially, I think Michael does a lot of the audiovisual stuff. It is phenomenal to see this broadcast on the YouTube channel and to have it. I love that all of your boards and recommending bodies, or not your recommending bodies, but your commissions and boards who make decisions, that those will be recorded in the future. That's good to see for a public body. I know county council does that as well. Okay, and it's just good to see. The South Carolina Comptroller General's Office, they used to regulate a lot of the financial kind of stuff for municipalities. They don't do as much anymore because things change. But in 2008, they issued what they call a local government and spending transparency program. Okay, and it was specifically targeted to public bodies like cities and towns and school districts to challenge them to post their expenditures online. Okay, all 5 of the school districts in this county publish their expenses online. In fact, they also publish their credit card statements, and my challenge to town council would be to also publish in full, unredacted, the credit card statements. Lexington School District 1 takes less than 1 hour each month to do that. They have over 4,000 employees with more than 100 credit cards that they publish every month. It took them a long time to decide to do it, and I think that you can do it a lot faster than them. So I would recommend, as you're publishing the line item expenses, okay, where people can search on that. Again, the school district, they publish hundreds of pages of line item expenses every single month. They go through, they actually have a staff member who goes through line item by line item to see if there's any redactions or anything. You can see the vendor, and you can see which account the funds came out of, how much the account was for, or how much the payment was for, and a description of what that expense was for. All things in context. If people want additional information beyond that, they can make a records request. Okay, I would highly recommend that you honor records requests. That'd be really nice too, and not use FOIA fees as a sword, because the entire purpose of FOIA is to prevent secret government activity. Thank you.
Is there any comments from the news media? I guess we don't have any here. I think Councilmember Smith wanted to make a comment.
Yeah. I did. One quick announcement. We wanted to announce that the small business advisory applications are open in their final days for application. I believe our communications team is going to post a link to that application on our social media channels in the days to come. I believe the date that that application is going to close is going to be Wednesday, March the 13th. That's about 30 days from today, and we will take up those applications for consideration on Monday, March 18th, which is our March work session.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And we will get that up on the Facebook page also. That concludes our business for this evening. Thank you for watching the Town Council work session for the Town of Lexington. This meeting was held at Town Hall on Monday evening, February 12th, 2024. Without objection, we are adjourned.